Well, oops. Hi, everybody. We're back.
Hello, everybody. We're back today, joined by our first Friends Group representative, Mary Soderberg. She's with the Friends of Pine Grove Furnace State Park. I believe we may have mentioned to you earlier today that we have 46 chapters of the foundation spread out across Pennsylvania. And we're happy to have Mary here today to talk to us a little bit about what Friends Groups do and specifically what the Friends of Pine Grove does. So welcome, Mary.
Well, thank you so much. This is a lot of fun. I appreciate the invitation.
Excellent.
I literally was in the park this morning, so I'm feeling invigorated. It was a beautiful day in Pennsylvania today.
Great day to be out. What were you doing
really
at the park? What was happening at the park?
Oh, well, today we had a number of things going on. I should tell you a little bit about the Friends, first of all. We're a group of volunteers. Most of us live near the park. Pine Grove Furnace State Park is maybe about 40 minutes west of Harrisburg. And so I have a 40-minute drive if I'm going, 45-minute drive when I'm going to the park. Anyway, we have a group of volunteers. We work together to raise money to make investments into the park. And we also host a number of different volunteer activities and festivals and things like that. Anyway, this past fall, exactly less than a month ago, we installed a new trail bridge over Mountain Creek, which connects this bridge. And if you can see it on your screen now, it was being positioned right there. Anyway, the bridge we installed on October 29th, and today we had a couple of gentlemen there installing steps because we have a little bit of a rise to get onto the bridge. So they were installing steps there. And then we also had a couple of gentlemen who were cutting firewood, which we sell to the campground. So, a number of things going on.
Excellent. We had mentioned about firewood sales earlier. So when you do sell firewood, what do you do with the money?
Well, first of all, it's surprising how much firewood we do sell. The campers come in and they're looking for firewood that is sourced locally, so they're not bringing in insects into the campground, and they're looking for the convenience of having something available that's dry and ready to burn immediately. And so it's an important source of revenue for us. We bring in maybe $10,000, $12,000 a year in firewood sales. So this money is incredibly important to us. We use it to invest back into the park. And what we normally do is we work very closely with the park manager to identify needs or ways to improve the visitors' experience in the park. So we have purchased 2 playgrounds for the park. We have we built a trail bridge about 4 years ago. So this bridge is our second bridge that we have installed in the park. We have bought furniture and supplies for the Iron Masters Mansion. One of the things that is kind of fun about Pine Grove Furnace State Park is that there's some historic buildings there, and they sometimes need investment. So we help out when we can. We also repaired the 250-year-old furnace stack a number of years ago. So we get involved in a number of things.
Nice.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think is the best part about being a member of a friends group?
I was talking to a woman today she's also a member of the Friends, and I didn't even mention her. I mean, she just goes out and she picks up litter on her own. And I was chatting with her today, and she said, this is my most favorite place, except for Hawaii. And I thought, you know what? It is a pretty wonderful place. It's just, being out in a state park is just I find so invigorating. But it's also really fun because it's a great group of people. really nice people volunteer, I've discovered. So it's fun to spend time with them.
Nice.
Yeah.
This has been kind of an unusual year for friends groups and for everybody. You mentioned that you generally have some very large events.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about the types of events that you have and will eventually get back to once things are a little bit more normal?
Yeah, this was at first a scary year for us because the state parks were officially closed down. They were keeping them open so that if people wanted to take a hike, you could do that. But the facilities were all closed. So the campground was closed, bathrooms were closed, and we had to make some tough decisions to cancel our events. And so that was very tough and scary. And at the same time, we had these plans to buy a bridge. And so we needed the revenue, and we were really uncertain what this year was going to be like. Anyway, everything turned out pretty good for us because then the parks opened up, and although we had to cancel our events, people kept buying firewood and sweatshirts and t-shirts from us, so it all worked out. But in a normal year, we host a trail race, which is a fun way to raise money. We have maybe 250 runners who literally they're running through the woods. They're on trails running through the state park and up into the state forest, the Michaud Forest, which surrounds our park. So that's a lot of fun. The biggest event we're involved with is a festival called Fall Furnace Fest. And this is a festival where we might have 8,000 people coming into the park. We have food and craft vendors. We have history demonstrations. We have music, just a lot going on over a 2-day period. And it all culminates on Saturday night. During the day on Saturday, kids are carving pumpkins. And on Saturday night, they all come together at one of the pavilions, and we put candles in the pumpkins, and the kids and their parents carry their pumpkins down through the park as it's getting dark, and we put them onto rafts and push them out into the middle of the lake. And it is just stunning to see that, and a lot of fun. And we have this hokey legend of the hairy hand that people have listened to, and it's just really a fun weekend. A lot of fun.
Yeah, I attended that, and definitely it is a great time at the park.
I'm trying desperately to find a picture of it on your Facebook page, Mary, so I can share it.
Well, you'd have to go back more than a year ago. So
yeah, you know the way. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
The way Facebook has started doing their photos is a little bit. They all pop up and dance around for a while. I don't know if you've noticed that, but it's rather interesting.
Yes, Facebook is always changing.
There you go.
Yes.
Glowing pumpkins in the water.
It is so beautiful, and it's so much fun to see the kids carving these pumpkins and then to see the line of the family as they're carrying them in down to the lake. It's just a lot of fun.
Very cool.
Yeah, and then we also host a number of volunteer days. As I mentioned, we work very closely with the park, and so things like for Earth Day, National Public Lands Day, some of these national days, we use them to, focus a volunteer day around. And so we might get, 20 to 50 people into the park working on different projects, whether it be planting trees, pulling out invasive plants like barberry, painting pavilions. We do a number of different things, and then we usually have a potluck lunch. The friends, we pay for hamburgers and hot dogs, and all the volunteers bring a potluck, a dish to pass. So that's also just a fun day where a lot of families participate in that.
Yes. So how did you adapt this year with some of your volunteerism with the pandemic?
It was hard, and we started very slow. One of our activities is we have the chair of our friends group is a local historian, and he normally does tours through the Iron Master's mansion, and he also does historical tours just throughout different areas of the park. And we made the decision that we just can't do those this year. So we didn't have any historical tours. We also made the decision not to have the race, not to do Fall Furnace Fest, and we canceled our plans to plant trees on Earth Day. So we really were very slow. In fact, the only really organized volunteer day was National Public Lands Day, where we brought out a number of people to plant trees. We've since then have done some more informal kinds of volunteer days where we just reach out to a small group of people. A couple of weeks ago, we had maybe 8 people working on trail maintenance. And this morning, I mentioned that we had 2 people working on cutting logs. So we're trying to keep it to smaller groups and, so doing the best we can.
Nice.
As everyone is.
Yeah, as everyone is.
Yeah.
So I see that Jack Miller has joined us. Jack is with the Friends of Ridley Creek, which is in Delaware County. So, Jack, if you want to tell us a little bit about the Friends of Ridley Creek and who you are and what you do, that would be great.
All right. Well, I sent you our yearly summation. We try to put that together every year to all the board members to see what we do and what we accomplish and try to get their volunteer hours together. And this year was pretty poor. We started out January, February, March, like gangbusters, everything's going great. Then the COVID restrictions started and we just stopped dead in the tracks. So we were really slowed down this year. We did a lot of things later on in the summer and some things in the fall, just small groups of people, like 4, 5, 6 people, because nobody wanted to get together and spread a disease that there's no cure for, no treatment for, and you're probably going to die. So it kind of put a damper on things.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the park, Jack. For people that don't know Ridley Creek State Park, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Now, Ridley Creek State Park is 2,606 acres of park. And one of the big things that happened this year, at the end of October 2019, a tornado came through there and wiped out 160 acres of trees and everything else in the way.
Wow.
And Ridley Creek State Park is basically made up of old homesteads. It was brought up by Sam Riddle in the 20s when people were going bankrupt. He was buying farms and making his own estate. At one time, it was the largest privately owned state in the state of Pennsylvania because he just buying these farms up. Now, if the people lived there, he could let them live there until they were gone. And they could still farm their land, but when they passed away or moved out, he claimed their land. So it became that. And around 50 years ago, it was ready to be made into a shopping mall and housing development.
Oh.
And then the state condemned and basically condemned it. So there's a lot of stories about how that all transition went about. So it's a nice park in the middle of everywhere. And when the pandemic hit, there were 12 million people there every day, I swear. Our hiking trails, we have about 16 miles of hiking trails, and they're about 18 to 24 inches wide. Now they're about 7 feet wide because groups of people were just all over the place. So trail maintenance was not a difficult thing this year. So we had a lot of storms and stuff, and the chainsaw guys were out there doing their thing. But to get back where I started, when the tornado hit last year, all these trees are laying down all over the place. And they wanted to do a timber harvest, so the state bid the work out, and they split up into 2 different sales. And the last sale is just about finishing up now. So they came through and clear cut everything that was in the area. The whole place is 160 acres of bare ground. They come through and graded it and just made a mess of everything. And the strangest part of this, at the top of one of the hills is the old family cemetery for the Russell family. And the trees fell over all the top of the walls of the thing. And it was always been a nice, serene place. There was a couple of owls that had a nest up there. You could always go up there and sit by the bench at the cemetery, and the owls would come in, and it was kind of neat. But now there's not a living thing within.
Oh,
Yeah, that was a pretty devastating storm. So that was, fortunately, nobody was injured because, you know, it is a popular park.
It tore up a couple houses on the way in.
Yeah.
The roof off on several houses and messed up a church. But yeah, I don't think anybody's hurt.
Yeah, when we talk about some of the old structures in our state parks and state forests, actually the oldest structure is in Ridley Creek State Park.
Yes, it is.
So, you know, which makes sense since, you know, we kind of developed east to west. So that was, you know, early America right there in the greater Philadelphia area. You guys do a lot of trail maintenance, and you mentioned you have 16 miles of trails at the park?
Yes.
And you have a regular trail maintenance crew during non-COVID years that meets on a monthly basis.
Yeah, first Saturday of every month has been our trail work for probably 25 years. So that's a strong group of dedicated people that come out, rain or shine. I think they're all crazy, but we all do a good job of keeping everything cleared up. It's a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah.
It's a good time to get out and vent.
Yes.
And a bad day of work, you get an axe and chop on a log all day long, you feel a whole lot better.
The other thing, if people are not familiar with Ridley Creek, is there is a historic farm, a historic plantation, as well as the historic mansion, which has become a very popular place for weddings.
Yes, it is.
You know, it is a day use park, unlike Pine Grove, which has camping. Ridley Creek is a day use park, so you cannot spend the night there unless you're one of the people that have are renting a house there.
Yes.
So what do you think? This is a little trail work, I assume?
there's your trail crew.
Looks like it, yeah. Looks like we're building the bridge on the White Trail. So it's a good group of people that come out and do their trail work, and sometimes they'll come back the second week to finish up or just keep on. It's a good group of people. We have a lot of fun, do a lot of hard work. It's just a good time for everybody.
Nice.
It's hard to explain to people why that's so much fun. You come back with mud all over yourself. Maybe some blood's coming out of somewhere, and your shoes are stuck in the mud. That was a great time. It's a matter of you.
I will say with I volunteered on the Rose Trail, which is in the Goat Hill Native Plant Sanctuary. And we were doing trail work during one of the hurricanes. And the guy leading the trail work said, when it really starts to rain, we'll quit. Well, I have never been so wet in my entire life. I mean, I think I dumped like a cup and a half of water out of each boot at the end. But it was a great day and a great memory. And working alongside all those very dedicated people was just invigorating.
Yeah.
So Pam, tell me what you're pulling up here, if you can share that with folks.
Yeah, this is the 2019 by the numbers, we call it, which we take all of those reports that Jack was talking about earlier, you know, and how much money people have raised, how many hours they've spent out there in the mud and in the sunshine, chopping wood and making trail things. And you can see that last year, which of course is the last year we have figures for yet because annual reports are coming due soon. 61,889 hours donated, and the value of those hours were over $1.5 million. So not only that, I mean, all of the Friends groups raised over $418,000 for their parks and forests and brought almost 79,000 people into the park for those various events like Furnace Fest and the charcoal run. And so pretty amazing group of people.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Mary. And thank you all those other friends out there.
Yeah, and Pam, can you show the map again? We mentioned earlier that the Friends groups are spread out across Pennsylvania. They're geographically dispersed, and you can see from hearing Jack and Mary talk that they do different things. It depends on the park or the forest. It depends on the needs of that location, and it also depends on the skill set and interest of the volunteers that are involved. So they are geographically dispersed, and these are just the PPFF chapters. There are
Right.
also 15 independent friends groups, and they don't function under our nonprofit umbrella, but all of the friends groups are always welcoming volunteers and looking for volunteers. Many of them are also are looking for board members. So if this is something that's of interest to you, you can go to our website and you can find the information on each of the chapters, and you can communicate with them to get more information or to express your interest in being a part of the great work that they're doing out there in your state parks and state forests.
Yeah. And Marcy, we have a very active Facebook page, so that's another way that people can get engaged with our friends group, and I believe quite a few friends groups have Facebook pages, so that's another way to communicate with your local group.
Yes, that's correct. And if the group has a Facebook page or a website, there'll be links to it on the PPFF webpage that you can go to and find all of them. And they'll post things. If there's events, they'll be communicating the events that they're having. I think Pam's going to bring up that page now so that you can see what it looks like.
Okay.
So there's Pine Grove, and if it'll let me switch to Ridley Creek.
We were talking about events. An event that many of the parks have hosted in recent years is called the First Day Hike.
Oh, gosh.
And this is something that DCNR has really encouraged all of us to do, is to host a hike on the first day of the year, January 1st. And of course, you never know what the weather's going to be like, and you don't know how many people are going to show up. And so we've had a lot of fun on our first day hikes. And in fact, for one of them, we had about 260 people. I mean, talk about crazy, but everybody had a good time. This coming
Again, I'm looking for
January is another unknown for us. How we'll manage this. As we speak, it sounds like DCNR is tightening things down a little bit more than it was a few weeks ago. So as of right now, we're planning on just having more virtual kinds of hikes and encouraging people to, at least in our park, we're going to encourage people to take a hike and take pictures and share them on Facebook with us.
Yeah, I think that's a good alternative, especially as the numbers of COVID cases continues to increase and the uncertainty of a month from now, we don't know where we'll be.
We've had there was one year where it was so cold, people went out and bought brand new hats to wear for their first day hike. Everybody was all bundled up in cars. And then there have been other days where it's been sunshiny and balmy. You never know.
Sort of the state of the weather anymore.
That's true. That's true.
It was 20 some degrees 2 nights ago, and now it's been beautiful today.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Pam,
I also got a kick out of listening to Jack, and as I have visited different parks, I'm always so amazed at how different each park is from other parks. Each one, in size, our park is relatively small. We're only maybe a little bit less than 700 acres, but we've got 2 lakes and we've got 2 beaches and we have a campground. So it's a very different kind of experience than Jack's park.
We're all different.
Mm-hmm.
Truly they are. Now, Jack, at one time your friends group had a very robust invasive species committee. Are your friends still doing invasive species work?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, the licensing thing came to be a problem, and then 2 people retired, and nobody wanted to pick it up.
Well,
It's just unfortunate.
Yeah, I think that goes back, Marcy, to what you said earlier. The friends groups, it depends on the park, but it also depends on the volunteers and what their interests and their abilities are. And, we're very lucky that we have a gentleman who is an avid historian. I mean, taking a tour with Andre is just such a fun experience, but not too many people have that skill set.
Right.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
We consider ourselves lucky to have him.
Jack, this is one of my favorite places at your park. I love the garden. I think it is so pretty.
I used to be a bellman.
I have not been able to be out there except one time. It's so far away from me, but
Well, it's open again, so come on out.
yeah, really beautiful place.
Yeah.
It is
There's
beautiful.
something to love in all of them, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the important thing is we have a system of parks. We have 121 parks. We have 20 forest districts, and they're also unique, and they all provide us with something different.
Mhm.
And they all have their fan base.
Mhm. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, there was one other little picture I want to share too, and I gotta see if I can get it to come up here. So I think this is about as impressive a figure as you're going to find. So since 2008, PPFF and our friends groups have raised over $20 million for the state parks and forests. And that's not chicken feet.
That I believe is just friends. That figure did not include us.
That does not include us? Okay,
Not include us.
just friends.
That's just
Yeah.
friends, and that's a combination of the value of their volunteer time and the actual money that they've raised. So that is a very impressive number. And you think about this is all being done. That number was all being done by volunteers.
Exactly.
So I mean, these are people that are very committed and dedicated to your state parks and state forest. And as I mentioned before, they're all looking for volunteers, looking for people to be a part of the board. And you know, we encourage you if you are passionate about our parks and forests, if you're passionate about the outdoors, to check out our website and see if there's a friends group near you. Or in some cases, we have friends that are not near the park that is their favorite, but they make the drive because the place is so important to them.
Right.
So,
Like Mary.
like Mary.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned we've been talking about what the volunteers do, trail maintenance, pulling invasive species and doing hiking tours, things like that. But there's also a lot of work behind the scenes that we do. So even if perhaps you don't feel like you're up to speed for splitting firewood, there's other opportunities. For example, you notice that both of the parks here today have a Friends Facebook page. Well, it takes a volunteer to manage that Facebook page. We have one of our members does a newsletter. He just happens to have the skill set where he knows how to do a layout for a newsletter, and it's not a fancy newsletter. It's usually just 2 or 3 pages that we do 4 times a year. And, so that's a really valuable skill set to have on your group of friends, volunteers. So there's things like that. And, like when we do Fall Furnace Fest, we bring in all kinds of volunteers. And some of the volunteers are helping with demonstrations. Some volunteers are helping people get up into the hay wagon. I mean, all kinds of things that we need help with. So it's not like you've got to know how to use a chainsaw.
Right.
Very true.
Or do you have to commit to something that's every month? I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
you have volunteers that come out just to help with your race.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
So there is a lot of flexibility based upon your desires, your time, your ability, and there are virtual opportunities because Jack also does a newsletter. There are virtual opportunities and there are in-person opportunities with safety precautions now, but more so when we're not in a pandemic. Yeah, awesome.
Keeping track of members, thanking people for their donations. There's all kinds of
one of our board members is just excellent at coordinating volunteers. It's like just step back and let Diane take care of that. Another one of our board members handles we sell merchandise in the park office. And so Donna orders that and makes decisions about what kinds of merchandise we should sell. So try to spread it out.
Yeah. Anybody who has any kind of skill, get in touch with the friends group and they will use that skill, whatever it is.
Yep.
Even if it's something as simple as coming on a chat with Marcy and Pam and talking for a couple of minutes.
So Marcy, it sounds like today's been a very successful day thus far at the Extra Give.
Yes, we're about halfway to our goal. Let me double check here right now. Maybe Pam already has it up. Our goal was $15,000. Let me put it in and see where we are. We're at 7,880 donations, so we're very excited about that. And this money, helps with projects. We've been doing a lot of projects to make sure that our parks and forests are accessible to all visitors. It helps with educational projects. It helps get people out. We have a program where we're trying to get young people out into our parks and forests, so it helps us support transportation scholarships. And it supports volunteer days, such as one we recently had where at Sam Lewis State Park, there was an old concession stand, and we converted the concession stand into an education center and then utilized that volunteer day to start building the base for a friends group at Sam Lewis State Park, which we hope to finalize in 2021. And their big project there will be, they will be converting 3 acres of lawn into a pollinator meadow. So that'll be a really cool project.
Yeah, Marcy, I happen to have the great experience of visiting one of my favorite projects from the Parks and Forest Foundation just this past weekend. In the Michaud Forest, there's this beautiful rock outcropping called Hammond's Rocks, and it was totally covered with graffiti. And the Parks and Forest Foundation worked with a number of several other volunteer groups and with forestry, the local fire department, and we had crews out there scrubbing the paint off those rocks. It was pretty amazing to see. And I will be quite honest, I will never forget the first day when we showed up to start working on those rocks. And you have to imagine rocks. It's so big that you can go into, like, it's rooms that are totally surrounded by these big rocks. Anyway, I walked in there that first day and I thought, what are we doing here? Anyway, I went back there this weekend with my 5-year-old grandniece, and there were families there. There were people taking pictures. There were dog walkers. It was just such a beautiful place and such a wonderful experience where 4 or 5 years ago, it was downright scary to go there.
Yeah. Because it had done it in addition to the over 6,500 square feet of graffiti. There were a lot of broken bottles. There was a lot of trash, and that was part of the cleanup, was getting rid of all the things to make it an inviting place for families. So for us, that's the litmus test. If you're not comfortable to be there, if you don't want to take your children there, then there are things that we need to address.
There I am.
There's Mary.
One little piece of
there, Mary.
Yeah.
Looking slightly overwhelmed and glum at the whole idea.
The way I describe this project is it was like a magic slate, because you would take one layer of graffiti off and another layer would appear. So, I mean, we I think had over 1,000 hours of volunteer time restoring Hammond's Rocks. And so it's really exciting to know that it's being utilized by families.
Well, forestry has done a good job. They actually have some cameras there, and the rangers pay attention, and they have caught some people and they prosecute them. So it's been a good experience all around. And there's also some very nice kiosks there, some informational kiosks, so you can learn about these rocks that are like more than 500 million years old.
Yeah, and these particular rocks, it's the only place where they come above the surface of the earth. So, I mean, they're very rare. Geologists love this place.
It's just amazing.
So you can see the height of that. And I will point out that we actually had to have rock climbers join us because, some of the graffiti was very high. It was in very unsafe locations, and we had people that were tied in and rappelling down the rocks in order to clean it. So you never know what your specialty skill set is and how it might be utilized in volunteerism.
Yes.
So the rock climbers were critical for us, to be successful in removing the graffiti.
Yeah, I was trying to find one of those photos too. Of course, they're not popping up.
That's okay.
I'm impressed that you can readily bring up so many pictures that are relevant.
She's a good multitasker.
I'm just always afraid of hitting the end meeting button and making you all go away. So, yeah, we have a really nice photo of the new interpretive signs up there too. And of course, I can't find that one either. But unfortunately, that graffiti thing is it's an ongoing problem. I was just up at a place in the Gallitzin State Forest about a month ago doing the same thing. It's hard to understand why people feel the need to do that. But
yeah, but kudos to the Pennsylvania Parks and Forest Foundation, because I think what you did was to create a model that can be replicated in parks around the country, actually.
all it takes is some elbow grease and a bucket of elephant snow.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a good program. Well, we don't want to keep you. I'd like to offer you both, a couple minutes if there's anything else you'd like to say about, volunteerism, your friends group.
Do your pitch, Jack.
I'm on this thing about these trees because it's been so traumatic. It's been maybe 2 months ago now. I got a thing, signed this survey. Somebody put out a petition that we're going to sign this thing and get this chopping all the trees down at Really Creek State Park stopped. So I look at this thing and it says they're tearing the trees down, they're grading everything flat, which is true. And they said then they're coming along and pouring chemicals on the ground so nothing grows again. No, the plan was we're going to get trees and replant it. That's 2021 to replant trees. So I couldn't figure what this is all about. So all right. So I got park management involved in it and said, I don't know if you know about this survey, but it's bad publicity here. So the park management got a hold of people and actually talked to them and said, this is not what's going on. The survey's still out there. It's really weird, but I don't know where people get these ideas sometimes. So maybe we just got to do some more publicity. We did put out signs. We made a little map. We put a thing on our webpage. We put a thing in the newsletter about this tree harvest and all that kind of jazz. But somebody come up with a really weird idea. And he went on and on about Penn's. Pennsylvania means Penn's Woods. If we cut out down the woods, there's no woods. We have to change the name of the state. Go on and on and on. To get people to sign this survey. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I don't know where it comes from sometimes. But then, like I say, unless somebody told me about it, I never knew it was out there. Because I don't spend time searching for trouble.
Yeah.
But you bring up a good point that if we're not educating or communicating, people will fill in with information or assumptions. So it is good to communicate, and that there was a lot of damage at the park and a need to clear the damage, and the trees that when trees start to come down and they don't have their buddies for support, the other trees around them can become very dangerous. So especially if they're all of the same age. So it was an opportunity there at the park to plant some fresh trees and maybe get rid of some invasive species, because there are quite a few invasive species there. So hopefully, people will be patient, and in a few years they'll find some new birds that are enjoying some emerging forests, and all will be well.
Yeah, like 2 years ago, we had the ash tree harvest, and people were in uproar about that, but you can't even tell anymore. I mean, you can still see some of the old roads they use, but basically it's cured itself.
Yeah, and the ash trees.
But it'll be fine in a couple of years, but people get nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're enthusiastic about their parks and forests, so we have to appreciate that, because we want people to advocate for their public lands.
Yep.
I think communication is critical. So
So, just in closing, it's been amazing to see how many people have been coming into the state parks and forests this year. Just totally amazing. It's been wonderful to see, seeing families who may never have even been to the park coming in to take a hike. So it's all been, it's created a lot of work. No question about that. Park staff has been working very hard, but yet at the same time, it's been really wonderful that we do have these parks and forests and people are taking advantage of them. And, I would just like to encourage people that, a lot of people think that the parks close on Labor Day, and that is not the fact. They are open year-round, and on a day like today, in the middle of November, there is nothing more beautiful than to take a walk in the woods. So
yes, you're here.
Yeah.
You're here.
Yeah.
I had a park manager say to me one time, he goes, people keep asking me what I do after Labor Day. He goes, we are open. We are open year round.
Yeah.
Yes. So good words of advice, Mary. This is a great time of year to get out, and even some of the vistas are even more stunning because there's nothing obstructing your view, and you can just see how grand and beautiful our state is.
Yeah, it really is a lot of fun.
So one last question. Pam and I 2 hours ago did a talk on s'mores. So do you like your marshmallow for a s'more toasted or burnt? I
will be honest. I do not do s'mores.
Yes, well, you're among about 45% of the population.
Oh, really? I may be one of the few people in the world who really doesn't care for either chocolate or marshmallows.
I'm with you on the marshmallow thing. I'm not a big marshmallow, but chocolate?
How about you, Jack? Do you like s'mores?
I just abstain.
You abstain?
I keep the fire going so they can do whatever they want, but I don't want to participate in that.
We're just curious where people land on the toasting level of their marshmallow.
Well, thank you so much for having us today. This has been fun.
Yeah, it was wonderful for both of you to join us. Thank you for being here, and
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you for everybody.
For what you do too. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Okay. Bye.
Okay.
Have a great weekend.
Happy Dogcast, and thanks everybody for watching.
Okay.
Bye. Have a great holiday, folks.